Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this countywide program for school employees across Lancaster County. My name is Mike Licklider, and I serve as the superintendent of the Penn Manor School District. And I'm here today representing the 16 school superintendents from across Lancaster County. This program was developed for school employees at all our schools, including non-publics, in conjunction with the 16 public school districts in Lancaster. And we'd like to thank a number of organizations for their cooperation and assistance in order to make this an opportunity for everyone. First, we'd like to thank Penn Medicine Lancaster General Health, who has partnered with us to deliver programming for parents and school employees in preparation for this very unique year caused by the pandemic. We also appreciate and want to thank our Lancaster County Commissioners for their support. They have partnered with all school systems to support this collaboration with Penn Medicine Lancaster General Health, and they've also dedicated some of the county's federal CARES funding to underwrite this partnership for school districts. So thank you to our county commissioners. And finally, we'd like to thank the Lancaster Chamber for their work in helping to coordinate and develop this program for parents, school employees, and businesses. Just some record keeping as we move forward here this afternoon. If you have questions for today's presenter, please post them to the chat box. You'll find the chat button at the bottom of your screen, which will then bring up a dialog box where you can type in your questions and submit them. At the end of the session, we'll take as many questions as time provides us. And today's program for school employees is Coping with Uncertainty. And thank you, Liz, for joining us. And I'll share a little bit about you before we get started. Liz Krantz is an educator with 23 years of experience as a classroom teacher in both public and private school settings. Her current roles include being a health educator for Penn Medicine Lancaster General Health, as well as a math support teacher in the Conestoga Valley School District. She's also a partner to her husband, Dave, and the mother to 2 sons. Liz is a mindfulness practitioner in her personal life and has facilitated mindfulness programs for students in grades 1 through 6. Liz is also a wellness advocate and is excited to share this webinar with all of you today. So thank you, Liz, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today, and thank you for hosting. I appreciate it very much. So here we are together today, looking for a way forward during a time of great uncertainty. Things are changing moment to moment and day to day, and we as educators are trying to find a way forward, not just as human beings, but as educators. So how do we do this? Even if you are somebody who is very comfortable with change, if you are somebody who is a very go with the flow kind of person, I imagine you're feeling some fatigue right now over all of the uncertainty. So we're all in this together, alone, together. So together we're grappling with COVID-19 and how to reopen our schools and how to make this feel good and be safe and right. And at the same time, we're all unique and alone in our own way of handling the stress we feel and grappling with how we find our own way forward with our own circumstances. And yet we're together. So we're together, we're alone, we're together. And there are some big questions. How do we deal with this? Uncertainty is stressful. And what do we do with our difficult emotions? How do we help the families and the children who are coming back to our classrooms? How do we help ourselves? So today we're going to focus on a few things. We're going to look at mindfulness and ways that mindfulness can be helpful when we're coping with difficult times. We're going to look at the pillars of wellness and how they relate to our life. And we are going to also talk a little bit about control. So I know these 3 things no matter what. Number 1, we're all feeling different emotions around this. And many of those may be emotions we don't really wish to feel. Number 2 is that those emotions may be changing moment to moment or day to day. So you may wake up feeling one way and feel completely different by 9 a.m. and different again by noon and in a different place by the end of the day. And number 3, as an educator, as an adult, you may be helping people in your own family try to navigate their way through. And then as an educator, you're part of this strong fabric that's supporting families and children. So where you're teaching and serving. Let's start with our brains and our bodies, which are complex and fascinating. And we're going to start with our brain. So there are three particular areas of the brain that we want to focus on when we're talking about uncertainty. So the first is the prefrontal cortex. And we know that the prefrontal cortex is a center of emotional regulation and executive function in our brain. So this is the area of our brain that helps us plan and organize and move forward with things when we're in a state of calm. The amygdala, which is sometimes called the reptile brain because it is a more primitive area of our brain, is responsible for our stress reactions. So it's the part of our brain that says freeze, flee, fight. So we've got the amygdala in action now. And we also have the hippocampus, which is the area of our brain that helps us to store and recall information. And it is known that stress inhibits both storing and recalling information. So mindfulness, where does it come in? Mindfulness, a definition of mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. This particular definition is John Kabat-Zinn's, who brought it to the medical community a long time ago, back in the 70s. And he first brought this concept when he was dealing with people who were in chronic pain. And he looked at their brains and saw what was happening to them when they were in a stressful situation. Either they were feeling physically stressed, emotionally stressed, or they were just having very stressful thoughts. And looking at their brains, what he saw was that the amygdala was all lit up and activated. And when these people practiced paying attention in those three ways, in the present moment, without judgment and with intention, on purpose, the amygdala deactivated. And so this work was successful and then transferred into cognitive therapy and now is part of the educational community and may even be a part of your district depending on what your district initiatives are. But what we know is that when we have stress and we have a response, often they're right next to one another. So I'm sure you can recall a time where you said something you didn't really mean to say, or you just reacted without thinking, and later you thought, oh, okay, I wish I'd done that differently, or I need to come back around to this. Mindfulness takes that stress, and instead of the reaction being right here, it puts a little cushion in between so that now, rather than reacting, we can respond. So mindfulness doesn't change the stressful condition. It doesn't take the stress away. It changes our response and our ability to respond to stress. So this is why mindfulness today. It may seem really simple to you. If you are not familiar with mindfulness, this may feel even pointless or silly, but the only way we get to do it is by doing it. So we're going to do some practice with this. I'm going to invite you, wherever you are right now, to just relax back into your seat. Take a moment to close your eyes, or take a soft focus if you don't feel like closing your eyes. And take a deep breath in and let it go. And see if you can't let some tension fall away from your body as you let it go. Take another deep breath in and let it go. And as you're just breathing normally and naturally, not doing anything to your breath, I want you to just consider that your breath is with you all the time. It's neutral. It's not a strong emotion. It's not probably something you really hate or really love. It just is. It's just there. All day, every day, we breathe in and we breathe out. And we can find our breath anytime we want. So as you are taking some breaths in and letting them go, I want you to see if you can notice where in your body you most feel your breath. Can you feel the air coming in through your nostrils? Maybe you feel it in your throat. Maybe you feel your breath most in your chest, or maybe it's more your belly. Just see if you can follow your breath in and out for about 3 breaths. And wherever it is that you feel it most obviously, we're going to call that your anchor. So that's your place where you can always come back. You can allow your eyes to open. We begin with the breath because it is always with us, and I want you to know that mindfulness is not something that you have to set an hour aside a day or even 15 or 20 minutes. You can really begin with just a minute worth of practice, and it makes a difference. So know that you can take mindfulness with you when you get in the shower, or when you're getting into your car and driving somewhere, or when you're making your coffee, or wherever, whenever, because your breath is always with you. Another part of mindfulness is paying attention to your emotions. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to explore that a little bit. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and allow your eyes to close again and get yourself comfortable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say a series of words that describe some different feelings and emotions that you've probably had at some point in your life. And so as I say each word, just simply acknowledge to yourself whether you've felt that feeling before. And if a moment pops up to you where you recall exactly where you were or what was happening when you felt it, you can allow that to come. And if nothing pops up, that's fine too. So just relaxing, listen to these words and see if you can connect to them. Happy. Restless. Excited. Weak. Worried. Angry. Sad. Eager. Lonely. Joyful. Peaceful. Doubtful. Curious. Mischievous. Grateful. Strong. Serious. Special. Disappointed. Loving. You can allow your eyes to open now. So when we take the time to notice how and when we are experiencing emotions in our body, we can stop and watch and feel almost how they are in our body, which is what we were just doing. This allows us to react differently than we may have in the past, because big emotions can feel almost like those big blow up punching bags with sand in the bottom, where if a big emotion comes, it can knock you all the way to the ground, and then you bounce back because we're all resilient, but it can take a long time to come back to a place of balance and stability. And I'm sure all of us have had that experience in our lives. And with mindfulness, when we're able to even just name how we're feeling, something just that simple, it stops the wobble, maybe from going down to the ground. Maybe it's just, we still get thrown off, but we can come back to balance more easily. And there are many more feelings and emotions I didn't mention, of course, but just taking the time to notice how you feel them in your body, when you feel them in your body, can help you a lot to bring balance to yourself. So the last area around mindfulness I want to explore today is mindfulness of thoughts. And maybe this happened to you while we were doing the breathing exercise a few minutes ago, or even just while we were doing the exploring emotions exercise. Often when we get still and we slow down and we try to be at peace, our minds go into hyperspeed and they start popping up, and all of the things, especially as a teacher or an administrator, especially right now, there are a lot of things that are on our minds. So we're going to take a moment, we're going to take a minute actually, and we're going to just relax. We're going to do some breathing again, but this time, if those thoughts begin to pop up for you, what I ask you to do is see if you can't label the thought. And an easy way to do this is to put it in a box, if you can imagine a box that's either past or future. Usually most thoughts that pop up into our minds can fit into one of those two categories. So for example, if something pops up that you need to be thinking about planning that you didn't do, or you're wondering about what's the outcome of that meeting going to be, that's a future thought. That can go into your future box. So just see it, name it, put it in the box, future. If something pops up from the past, something you forgot to do, something that you meant to do, something that you're still worrying about, notice it, past. It's happened. And if it's something that's ongoing, you could actually even have a place that you're thinking about that's an ongoing box. So I'm going to ask you to, once again, relax wherever you're sitting right now. Allow your eyes to close, or take a soft focus. And taking a deep breath in, letting it go. Find your breath. And see if you can't follow your breath for 1 minute. If any thoughts pop up for you, see if you can't label them and put them in a category. Allowing your eyes to open, we'll move on to our next area that we're going to talk about today, and that is thinking about being a human being. So we are human beings who do a lot of things, and yet we're not human doings. And in order to do all of the things we're called on and counted on to do, we really need to thrive as people. So one way we can focus on ourselves, another way we can focus on ourselves, is by thinking about 5 pillars of wellness. I'm going to go through each pillar, and I want you to consider it as it relates to your life, how it looks for you individually. So here we go. So the first one is rest. The first pillar is rest. So right now you can think about the way you are able to rest in your life, how you sleep at night. How rejuvenating is your sleep? Do you sleep all the way through the night? Or are you wakeful? Also, though, rest during the day as a form of pause. Do you give yourself little breaks at all? So rest as a pillar. The second pillar is nutrition. So I want you to think about it for a moment. Think about the foods and drinks that you consume over the course of a day. How does this look for you? Are you a snacker? Do you forget to eat? Maybe you're a stress eater. Maybe you have certain foods you lean on, foods or drinks like caffeine or alcohol or soda. Maybe you have a favorite food that you crave or love. Do you drink water? The third pillar is movement. So I want you to think about whether you have a habit of movement in your life. It doesn't have to necessarily be a formal exercise plan, but what does movement look like for you? And how intentionally are you moving across your day or through your day? The fourth pillar is socialization, which no doubt has been affected greatly by COVID-19. So I'm sure you're socializing differently this August than you were a year ago. But I want you to take for a moment here to just consider socialization as it works for you in your life and how you are finding ways to socialize with other people. And the last pillar, the fifth pillar, is connection to something bigger. So this could be your faith, if you have a faith. It could be your work. It could be a role that you take on as an adult, either as a partner or a caregiver or a parent. So these are the pillars that support healthy living. And I'm going to ask you now to, since we've had a chance to scan them, I want you to think about which of those 5 pillars, rest, nutrition, movement, socialization, connection to something bigger, which one is your strongest? What makes it strong? And what do you do to sustain it? What attention do you bring to that pillar? How does it make your life better? And now I want you to consider which of the pillars was your weakest, or maybe which one was weaker and could use some strengthening. So I'd like you to pick one of those areas that's one of your weaker areas, an area that you'd like to strengthen. And I would like you right now to think about one thing that you could do either today or tomorrow or in the next few days to strengthen that pillar. What's one action you can take for you to take care of yourself? And once you've had a moment to consider that, I want you to close your eyes and picture yourself doing whatever that is that you just named for yourself. Picture yourself doing it. Picture yourself being successful. Picture yourself being happy. I want you to consider when you will do it. When can you make that happen? I want you to consider, is there one of your stronger pillars that can help you with the strengthening of something else? Okay. The last area that I want to explore with you today is around the idea of control. So if I asked you to name one thing right now that's out of your control, could you do that? I imagine that you can. I imagine it's actually pretty easy because there are a lot of things that are out of our control right now as adults, which is one of the reasons that we are in this time of uncertainty and we are feeling stress. So I want you to name one thing, just say it out loud if you want to, wherever you are right now, that you're not in control of. And now something else you're not in control of. And something else you're not in control of. So, because there are so many things that are out of our control, I imagine that that was not a difficult thing for you to do. And we know that adults like to be in control, especially educators, especially in August, especially right before the school year begins. Usually we have our things fairly well nailed down right about now. And if not, even if we don't have it all nailed down, we certainly have a plan for how it's going to look in the next days and weeks. And right now we don't really have that. Even if we have a plan, we're not sure how long that plan is going to stay because things are changing. So this causes stress. And that means that we're in that place with where our amygdala is lit up and we're experiencing that. And stress is important for a couple of reasons. One, it can be a protective measure. And the other is that we only feel stress because we care about what's underneath it. So it is the nature of caring that makes us want it to be a certain way. And when we don't have control, there's that stress again. So what do we do with this? This is just one thing you can do, and I do highly recommend it. It is something I use in my life, and it does help me quite a bit. So I offer this to you and hope that it is helpful for you as well. And that is this. So what I want you to do now is I want you to identify one thing that you are in control of. And it may be something very basic, like what you're doing with your afternoon, or whether you're going to have one meal for dinner or another meal, or whether you're going to exercise or not. You could bring it back to your pillars of wellness. You may have control over when you're going to bed tonight, or what you will do with your evening hours. Now I want you to name something else you're in control of. One thing that you have control over. And one more thing. I'm hoping that you could identify a few things that you are in control of, because the simple act of identifying what you can control goes a long way to creating some balance in your life and helping calm that stress response in our bodies. These are simple exercises, but they can really help a lot. Just know the next time you're feeling stress over something you can't control, even just immediately saying, okay, I'm not in control of that, but I am in control of this, goes a long way. The last thought I'd like to offer you today is that really we are very much all like rubber bands. So I ask you to look at this rubber band. So we know rubber bands are very resilient. They stretch when they need to. They come back to their natural state without any effort at all. And they're pretty amazing. But as we stretch, we stretch and we stretch, we can only stretch so far. And when we are already stretched, our ability to stretch further becomes lessened. And we can stretch so far that we snap. The other thing I want you to consider is that if I hold this stretched at its maximum stretch, eventually this rubber band is going to become less resilient. So we really need to give ourselves some ease. And that is what I wish for you in these days and weeks to come, that you may find some ease in your life and that you can take a moment to just find your breath, feel whatever you're feeling without judgment, acknowledge it, know how it feels in your body, that you can think of ways that you can take care of yourself as you head through the rest of this day and the days to come with rest and nutrition and movement and socialization and connection to something bigger. And just thinking about the things that we are in control of, that you are in control of. So I wish you well with this, and I invite any questions that you may have. If there's anything I can do right now, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Liz. And just a reminder to everyone, if you have some questions or even comments, feel free to submit them with the chat button that you click at the bottom. It'll bring up a dialog box on the right, and we'll read your questions. But Liz, while we're waiting for some questions to see if there's any comments, one of the 5 pillars you talked about was socialization. And we are social creatures, as you point out. And coming back into the school year, both with students and with colleagues and other school employees, teachers, things are going to look very different. So what are some strategies for people within that socialization route, knowing that it's going to look very different in the age of COVID-19?
Well, for one thing, I would say it's really going to be more important than ever for us to seek socialization with intention. And it might take a different format, but one of the things that's the most fun about returning to school is being able to connect with your colleagues and connect with one another. So really taking the time to see one another and to accept that we may be in different places about it. So maybe you feel fine about heading back into the classroom, and you have your own unique circumstances that make that true for you. And yet one of your colleagues may not be feeling that way. They may be feeling quite a bit of discomfort over it. So just accepting that each of us is where we are and being non-judgmental about it, but also seeking out one another and checking in. How are you doing today? Knowing that maybe you'll be doing differently tomorrow. Lifting one another up with a joke or a positive word. I know we can't smile so much behind the masks, but you really can see it in somebody's eyes. And really just saying hi or sending a text, maybe finding some other ways to connect with one another, but definitely not avoiding it. We need to make sure we're seeing one another and giving each other the support. And if you see a friend or a colleague who is struggling, offering them the support of even just listening to wherever they are. And of course, knowing your resources within your school is helpful too.
Well, thanks, Liz. And I'm not seeing any questions for us. So it was a very thorough presentation, and thank you so much. Just want to remind all of the participants on that we are recording the sessions and we will post them. We're sharing them out with the 16 different school districts. So I know Hempfield, Penn Manor, we both have ours posted. If you go to our main website, www.pennmanor.net, you'll see at the bottom of a page a link about the health education sessions partnered with Penn Medicine LGH General Health. And there is a recording up from one of last week's sessions, which also may be of interest. It was COVID-19 101, basic facts about the current pandemic from Dr. Martin at Lancaster General Hospital, Penn Medicine. So check that out. And again, we appreciate your time and wish everyone the best as we all prepare for the start of school. So thanks and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.